Jamahal Hill suffered a pretty nasty looking left elbow injury tonight at UFC 263, and in this video we're going to break down exactly what happened. Welcome back everybody, I'm Dr. Brian Sutterer, and this is your #1 source for learning about the unique medical side of the world of sports. You guys know what to do if you enjoy these videos and want to help support this channel, so let's jump right into when this happened here and talk about what's going on. Right off the bat here in the post-fight interview, we can see the significant deformity in Hill's left elbow. And as we'll look at our anatomy later on, I believe what we're seeing here with this protrusion, that bump, is actually part of his forearm bone called the ulna. Your humerus is the upper arm bone that sits up in here, and then down in our forearm we have two bones, the radius and the ulna. And I believe that this protrusion we're seeing sticking out the back is actually a part of the ulna. It's that bump that you can feel on the back of your elbow. So what this looks like to me is a elbow dislocation with possible fracture. And then of course, we're gonna see some ligament, soft tissue damage under there as well. A lot of people thought this looked like a broken arm, but really I think the elbow was the source of the injury. If you look at the moment when I believe this occurred, Craig has Hill's left elbow wrapped up pretty well here. And we can see he's already applying this torque excessively to his elbow. So his upper arm is back here, then we're seeing this severe angle with that torque applied to his elbow. Then as he kind of comes down, this position to me is probably when that dislocation occurred. If we look closely here, we can see a little bit of that contour, kind of that outline of Hill's lower arm bone, the ulna, and you can see where it looks like it's starting to protrude. So here in this position, if Hill's arm was normally in full extension, whenever he hyperextends it or it gets bent backwards, that's going to be, I think, when this dislocation and potentially fracture would have occurred, and we're going to see that ulna ultimately stick out here in the back. This is when things got really crazy because we can see Hill on top here, and at this point, I think his elbow is already significantly injured. And we can actually see how it kind of snaps from one side to the other as Craig is trying to finish that submission. I don't know how Hill was able to continue here. This is going to be extremely painful. It's going to be extremely concerning when you can feel that elbow just completely loose and dislocated. Again, here you can see that little bit of a bump that's going to signify that ulna, that forearm bone that's dislocated out of the elbow. So this whole time, that elbow just flopping around is because that joint has completely dislocated. And here, Hill looks like he's even trying to kind of help stabilize it himself. Next, we'll dive into elbow dislocations and talk about the specific anatomy here of the elbow joint. But first, I want to give a quick shout out to the sponsor of this video. In the sports world, it's absolutely crucial to take care of your body with things like eating healthy, exercising, and getting plenty of sleep. But for a lot of guys, including myself, it's easy to forget about our skincare, even though it should be a vital part of our self-care. I'm sure you can relate to that confused feeling I get of wondering what product to use. And with our busy schedules, we need something that's efficient and easy to follow. The sponsor of today's video, Geology, is here to help ease all those concerns. Geology is the fastest growing men's skincare brand in the US and is all about delivering personalized, effective, and efficient skincare products. When you get started, you'll go through a series of basic questions to make sure you're getting the regimen that's tailored exactly for you. I use regimen 26, which features an everyday face wash, a morning face cream, a repairing night cream, and a nourishing eye cream. It takes no more than a couple of minutes in the morning and evening to leave your skin feeling healthy and refreshed. To get started, click the link in the description to take their free skincare quiz and save up to 70% off your first personalized trial. I know a lot of you, like me, maybe are already using this product, so head to your account now and upgrade your regimen. Plans start at just $20 and you can save up to 70% on your first purchase. Also, with summer here, make sure you check out their brand new SPF product. So thank you again to Geology for sponsoring today's video, and let's get back to our learning. Looking at our biodigital anatomy tool here first, I want to scroll into specifically just the bones of the elbow joint. So of course the arm bone here is going to be the humerus, and then down on the forearm we have two bones. We have the ulna and we have the radius. The radius sits on the thumb side of the forearm and the ulna sits on the back. If we rotate this around, that bump that you can feel on the back of your elbow is going to be called the olecranon process. It's that large protrusion of the ulna. So when we talk about the elbow joints, that primary elbow joint that involves extension and flexion of the elbow is going to be found here between the ulna and the humerus, the humeral-ulnar joint. But we also have a joint between the radius and the ulna that allows our arm to spin or pronate and supinate about itself. So when we do this motion, the ulna is staying still and it's just the radius that's spinning here on this annular structure about the ulna. And then we're also going to have a little bit of a joint here between the radius and the humerus. Now, stabilizing that joint structure, we're going to have a lot of different soft tissues, some ligaments, some joint capsule. And so, of course, we're going to have the joint capsule that kind of surrounds all of this, that maintains that integrity of the joint space. But then we're going to have individually kind of named ligaments. If we look here on the inside of the elbow, this is going to be where that ulnar or medial collateral ligament likes to live. This is that ligament that you hear of tearing when somebody has Tommy John surgery. It's that ligament on the inside of the elbow that runs between the ulna and the humerus. So that's one of the stabilizers here of the elbow joint. If we then rotate across to the other side, now on the lateral side of the elbow, we're going to have a lateral collateral ligament. So all these structures are analogous. We see this kind of thing in the knee. We see ligaments like this in the ankle. And so there's a lot of similarities as we go through different joints in the body. We then have the annular ligament that runs around the radius that allows for that pronation and supination. And so all of these are going to be passive structures that allow for stability of the elbow joint. When you have an elbow dislocation, we classify it based on the direction that the ulna moves relative to the humerus. So if the ulna is moved posterior back here, we're going to call that a posterior elbow dislocation. If it's in front of the humerus, we're going to call that an anterior dislocation. Most of these dislocations are posterolateral, meaning the ulna comes posterior and to the outside. And then we can further classify them into simple or complex. Simple, where there's no associated fracture. Complex, where there is a fracture. And of course, then you can have a lot of soft tissue injury from these ligaments tearing sort of in succession as they fail and as that elbow comes out of place. So now if we look back at the end of the fight here, we can see some of these different contours, right? So again, that's where I believe that what we're seeing here is part of the ulna. It's certainly possible that what we're looking at is the contour of the humerus, the medial epicondyle, but just based on the deformity and the direction his arm was bent, my guess is that this is going to be part of the ulna that we're seeing there kind of popping out the back. And it's hard to know if there was an associated fracture here, but like I said, we can certainly have those with a dislocation. I don't know why they haven't attempted to at least try to stabilize it at this point. I will say that of all the joints that we see dislocated, elbows can be very hard to reduce or put back in place. It's not like a shoulder, it's not like a finger, which are pretty straightforward to put back in place. Elbows can be very, very tricky to reduce and get back, especially for somebody who doesn't have extensive experience. So I can understand why they might not be attempting to reduce it right here in the octagon, but it'd be nice if he at least had a little bit better kind of support here and wasn't just dragging his elbow along here during the post-fight part. Long-term prognosis depends entirely on what's fractured, the extent of the fracture, and then the associated soft tissue injury with injury to these corresponding ligaments. Of course, we see baseball pitchers who tear their ulnar collateral ligament can be out for a very extended period of time. Part of that is because of the stress they put on this ligament, but also because it can take a while to heal. Depending on what fractures are there, if any fractures are there, of course, that's going to dictate ultimate prognosis. So hard to give an overall picture here of how long Hill could be out, but we're talking about a pretty significant injury here, and elbow dislocations, like I said, are not going to be as common as like a shoulder dislocation. One last image here that we can look at, you can see again, if we look at kind of the contour of Hill's humerus coming down and then the forearm, it looks like we're seeing a little bit of a step off here where it looks like that ulna has displaced or dislocated posteriorly, which again is going to be the most common type of presentation we see with an elbow dislocation. So in summary, to walk through this again here, as Hill has his arm twisted here, that's going to likely be when the dislocation would have occurred in the elbow, as he's kind of being brought down to the ground there with that excessive torque being placed on the elbow joint. The elbow is composed of the humerus or the upper arm bone, and then the radius and the ulna in the forearm, and there's a number of different ligaments that provide passive stabilizing and support about the elbow joint. We classify elbow dislocations based on the direction that the ulna displaces relative to the arm bone, with the most common being a posterolateral displacement, meaning the elbow going to the back and to the outside. That's it for the video, everybody. Let me know as always any questions or comments down below, and until next time, we'll see you later. Bye.